When my son took her side, I stayed silent. Not because I agreed, not because I did not feel the pain, but because I had already learned something about love. Sometimes, love means swallowing your words before they turn into tears. I remember the exact moment it happened. We were standing in the kitchen. The same kitchen where I once packed his school lunches. The same kitchen where he used to sit at the table and swing his legs because they did not reach the floor yet. She said something sharp. Something small, but sharp enough to cut. I opened my mouth to explain myself. And then my son spoke. "Mom, please just let it go." He did not look at me when he said it. He looked at her. That was the day I understood where I stood. I smiled. I nodded. And I stayed quiet. But inside me, something old and heavy settled into my chest. A feeling I had not felt before. A feeling of being gently pushed aside by the very child I raised alone. This is not a story about anger. It is not about blame. It is about silence. The kind of silence that grows when love is taken for granted. I am telling this story now because there are many women like me. Mothers who gave everything. Mothers who stayed strong when no one else did. And mothers who learned, too late, that love changes shape. This is my story. I raised my son alone. His father left when he was still small. Not with shouting. Not with fighting. Just a quiet leaving, like a door closing softly but forever. I remember standing at the window that day, holding my baby in my arms, watching a car disappear down the street. I told myself I would be enough. Enough love. Enough strength. Enough for both of us. And for many years I worked long hours. Sometimes 2 jobs. Sometimes night shifts that left my feet aching and my eyes burning. But every morning, I woke up before him. I made breakfast. I packed his bag. I kissed his forehead while he slept. I missed birthdays. I missed school events. But I never missed. When my son took her side, I stayed silent. Not because I agreed. Not because I did not feel the pain. But because I had already learned something about love. Sometimes, love means swallowing your words before they turn into tears. I remember the exact moment it happened. We were standing in the kitchen. The same kitchen where I once packed his school lunches. The same kitchen where he used to sit at the table and swing his legs because they did not reach the floor yet. She said something sharp. Something small, but sharp enough to cut. I opened my mouth to explain myself. And then my son spoke. "Mom, please just let it go." He did not look at me when he said it. He looked at her. That was the day I understood where I stood. I smiled. I nodded. And I stayed quiet. But inside me, something old and heavy settled into my chest. A feeling I had not felt before. A feeling of being gently pushed aside by the very child I raised alone. This is not a story about anger. It is not about blame. It is about silence. The kind of silence that grows when love is taken for granted. I am telling this story now because there are many women like me. Mothers who gave everything. Mothers who stayed strong when no one else did. And mothers who learned, too late, that love changes shape. This is my story. I raised my son alone. His father left when he was still small. Not with shouting. Not with fighting. Just a quiet leaving, like a door closing softly but forever. I remember standing at the window that day, holding my baby in my arms, watching a car disappear down the street. I told myself I would be enough. Enough love. Enough strength. Enough for both of us. And for many years I worked long hours. Sometimes 2 jobs. Sometimes night shifts that left my feet aching and my eyes burning. But every morning, I woke up before him. I made breakfast. I packed his bag. I kissed his forehead while he slept. I missed birthdays. I missed school events. But I never missed being his mother. He was a gentle boy. Quiet. The kind who watched before he spoke. At night, he used to crawl into my bed when he had bad dreams. He would wrap his small arms around my waist and whisper, "Mom, don't go anywhere." I would stroke his hair and say, "I'm right here. I'm not leaving." And I meant it. When he grew older, Things became easier in some ways. He learned to tie his shoes. He learned to make his own breakfast. He learned how to be independent. I was proud. So proud. I sat in the front row at his graduation. I clapped until my hands hurt. I cried quietly when he wasn't looking. He hugged me afterward and said, "I couldn't have done this without you, Mom." I believed that moment would last forever. But life keeps moving. Children grow up, and mothers slowly step into the background. When he met her, I knew things would change. I am not foolish. I expected it. She was polite at first. Quiet smiles. Short conversations. I tried to give space. I tried not to interfere. I remembered how it felt to be young and newly married. I told myself, this is his life now. Let him live it. When they married, I helped where I could. I cooked. I cleaned. I stayed out of the way. I never wanted to be that mother. But slowly something shifted. The way she spoke to me became shorter. The warmth faded. The smiles stopped reaching her eyes. If I offered help, it was not needed. If I stayed quiet, I was too distant. I could never get it right. My son changed too. Not all at once. Little by little. He stopped calling every day. Then every week. Then only when something was needed. When I visited, conversations felt tight, like walking through a room filled with glass. I watched my words carefully.
It chose silence over misunderstanding.
And still, it wasn't enough. The day everything became clear was ordinary.
No shouting.
No dramatic fight. Just a kitchen, a comment, and a choice. She misunderstood something I said. I tried to explain. I nodded. I smiled. I said nothing. That night, I lay awake in my old room, listening to the house settle, feeling like a guest in a place that once felt like home. I did not cry loudly. I have learned how to cry quietly. Into my pillow. Into my memories. Into the spaces where my voice used to be. This is where my silence began. Not because I stopped loving my son, but because I finally understood that love does not always mean being heard. Sometimes it means stepping back. Sometimes it means letting go. And sometimes it means accepting that your place has changed. In the next part of my story, I will tell you how small moments turned into distance, how quiet days became lonely ones, and how I learned that being a mother does not always mean being needed. After that night, nothing looked different on the outside. The house was the same. The walls stood where they always had. The clocks kept ticking. But inside me, something had shifted. I stayed a few more days after that visit. I helped in the kitchen when asked. I folded laundry. I smiled when spoken to.
But I spoke less.
Not because I had nothing to say. Because I did not want to say the wrong thing again. I watched my son from a distance. The way he laughed with her. The way he listened closely when she spoke. The way his attention followed her voice, even when I was in the room. It wasn't jealousy. It was realization. I was no longer the center of his world. And maybe I hadn't been for a long time. When it was time for me to leave, he hugged me quickly. One arm. A soft pat on the back. "Drive safe, Mom," he said. I wanted to say more. I wanted to ask, "When will you call?" I wanted to ask, "Do you still need me?" But the words stayed in my throat. "I will," I replied. And I walked to my car alone. Back home. The silence felt heavier than usual. My house had always been quiet. I was used to that. But this silence felt different. It echoed. I placed my purse on the table and I took off my shoes slowly. I stood in the middle of the living room and listened. Nothing.
No footsteps. No laughter.
No voice calling, "Mom." I sat down on the couch and folded my hands in my lap. The same couch where he used to sit beside me during storms. The same couch where we watched old movies together on Sunday afternoons. I told myself I was proud of him. And I was. But pride does not fill empty rooms. Days passed. Then weeks. I waited for the phone to ring. Sometimes it did. Mostly it didn't. When I called, conversations were short. "How are you, Mom?"
"I'm fine."
"That's good." And then silence. I started choosing my call times carefully. Not too early. Not too late. Not during dinner. Not during weekends. I did not want to interrupt his life. Slowly, I stopped calling as much that I found myself talking to memories instead. While washing dishes, I remembered teaching him how to dry them. While folding clothes, I remembered sewing patches onto his school pants. While cooking, I remembered him asking for seconds. Memories are kind that way. They visit when you are alone, but they leave you emptier when they go. I told myself, this is normal. This is life. Friends said the same. Children grow up, they said.
They have their own families now.
I nodded. I smiled. I agreed. But no one tells you how quiet it becomes afterward. No one tells you how often you will reach for the phone and then put it down. The first holiday without him was the hardest. I cooked anyway. Out of habit. Out of hope. I set the table for two. Then quietly I removed one plate. I ate alone. I told myself he was busy. I told myself he would call later. He didn't. That night I sat by the window and watched lights turn off in other houses. Families finishing dinner. Children laughing. Someone washing dishes together. I wondered if he ever thought of me during moments like that. When he finally did call, weeks later, his voice sounded distant. We're thinking of coming by sometime, he
said.
Sometime is a strange word. It sounds close, but it means nothing. That would be nice, I replied. He paused, then said, I'll let you know. And the call ended. I stared at the phone for a long time after that. Not angry, not upset, just tired. I began to understand something slowly.
My role had changed.
I was no longer the one he leaned on. I was no longer the one he ran to. I had become optional. And that realization did not come with noise or drama. It came quietly, like dust settling on furniture that is no longer used. Still, I stayed silent. I did not complain. I did not ask for more, because mothers are taught to be strong, even when it hurts. In the next part of my story, I will tell you how small moments turned into deep distance, how unspoken words created walls, and how I learned that silence can sometimes be louder than any argument. The distance did not come all at once. It arrived in small moments. Moments so small that, at first, I told myself they did not matter. But they did. They mattered because they kept repeating. When my son finally came to visit, months later, I cleaned the house as if company mattered again. I dusted shelves that no one touched. I washed curtains that still smelled like old sunlight. I cooked his favorite meal, even though no one had asked me to. When they arrived, I stood at the door smiling. I always smiled. He hugged me quickly. She stepped in first. Everything looks the same, she said, looking around. I did not know if that was a good thing or a bad thing.
So I said nothing.
During dinner, they spoke mostly to each other.
Plans.
Work. Friends I did not know. I listened. Every once in a while, my son looked at me and smiled politely. The way you smile at someone you care about but no longer need. I asked simple questions. How is work? Are you feeling well? Short answers came back. We're fine. Busy. I stopped asking. Later that evening, I offered tea. It was something I had always done. I don't drink tea at night, she said. Oh, I replied. I didn't know. My son did not look at me. That small moment stayed with me, not because of the tea, but because he did not say, Mom didn't know. He said nothing at all. I began noticing other things. How my opinions were ignored. How my stories were cut short. How advice, once welcomed, was now unwanted. When I mentioned a doctor I trusted, she said, We already have our own. When I suggested a recipe, she smiled politely and said, That's old-fashioned. Old-fashioned. The word felt heavier than it should have. I stopped sharing. I stopped suggesting. I stopped remembering out loud. After they left, the house felt colder. Not because they were gone, but because I realized something while they were there. I no longer belonged in their world. I was a visitor now, even in my own home. Phone calls became shorter after that. Sometimes he did not answer at all. When he did, there was always a reason to end the call quickly. She's calling me. We're heading out. I'll talk to you later. Later rarely came. I tried to be understanding. I told myself love changes shape. I told myself marriage brings new priorities. But at night, when the house was quiet, thoughts became louder. I wondered if I had done something wrong. If I had said something careless. If I had been too much or not enough. I replayed conversations in my head. I searched for mistakes. None of them explained the emptiness. One afternoon, I mailed him a letter. A real letter. Handwritten. I told him I was proud of him. I told him I missed him. I told him my door was always open. He never mentioned it. I did not ask. The hardest part was the way my name changed. He used to say, "Mom," now he said my name.
Softly.
Formally. Like someone creating space without saying so. I stayed silent through it all. Because silence felt safer than rejection. Because if I asked for more, I might hear the truth.
And I was not ready for that yet.
In the next part, I will tell you about the moment that finally broke my silence. The moment when something small became something I could no longer ignore. It happened on an ordinary day. Nothing dramatic. Nothing loud. Those are the moments that hurt the most. It was my birthday. I did not expect a party. I did not expect gifts. At my age, expectations become softer. All I wanted was to hear his voice. I woke up early that morning. Old habits do not leave easily. I cleaned the kitchen. I watered the plants. I made myself a simple breakfast. I kept my phone close. Every time it buzzed, my heart lifted a little. But it was never him. Hours passed. By afternoon, I told myself he must be busy.
Work. Life.
Marriage. I understood. I always understood. Evening came. The sun slipped away quietly, just like hope does when you are not watching. I sat by the window. The same window I used to watch him from when he was a child. The same place where I waited for him to come home from school. I checked my phone one last time. Nothing. That night, I did not cry. I just felt small, like a chapter that had been closed without being finished. The next morning, I received a message. A short one. Sorry, Mom. Busy day yesterday. No call.
No words. No explanation. Just that.
I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed back. It's okay. I erased it. I typed again. I missed hearing your voice. I erased that too. In the end, I wrote nothing. Silence had become my language. A week later, I visited them. I did not announce myself. I thought surprise might feel like love again. When she opened the door, her smile did not reach her eyes. "Oh, you're here," she said. "Yes," I replied softly. I was nearby. That was a lie, but a gentle one. My son came out of the bedroom. He looked surprised. Not happy. Just surprised. "Mom," he said, "you should have called first." I nodded. "I didn't want to disturb you." He did not invite me in right away. She stepped aside instead. Inside, the house felt unfamiliar. New furniture. New rules. I sat on the edge of the couch. I felt like a guest waiting to be told how long I could stay. She went into the kitchen. I heard cupboards opening, dishes clinking. Then she spoke. "Next time, please let us know before coming. We need space."
Her voice was calm.
Not angry. That made it worse. I looked at my son. He did not look back. He nodded slowly and said, "She's right, Mom." That was the moment. Not when she spoke, but when he agreed.
No pause. No hesitation.
Just agreement. Something inside me shifted. Not loudly. Not sharply. It was like a quiet crack in something I had been holding together for years. I wanted to say many things. I wanted to remind him of nights I stayed awake when he was sick. Of years I worked extra hours so he could study. Of meals eaten cold so he could eat warm. But I said none of it. Because love that has to remind someone of its sacrifices has already been forgotten. I stood up slowly. "I understand," I said. My voice did not shake.
I was surprised by that.
"I'll leave now." He finally looked at me then. "Mom, don't be upset. That word felt wrong. This was not upset. This was realization. At the door, I turned back once. "I raised you to choose peace," I said softly. I just didn't know I would be the price. He did not reply. The door closed gently behind me.
No slam. No tears.
Just silence. On the bus ride home, I stared out the window. The city moved on like nothing had happened. But something had ended. I was no longer waiting. I was no longer hoping. I had finally seen where I stood. In the next part, I will tell you what happened after that day. How silence turned into understanding. And how letting go became the hardest and most healing thing I ever did after that day. I did not call him. Not out of anger. Not to punish him. I simply stopped reaching. For the first time in my life, I let the silence be real. The days felt long at first. Too quiet. Too empty. I would reach for my phone without thinking. Then I would stop myself. I told my hands to rest. I told my heart to breathe. I began to notice things I had ignored before. The sound of birds in the morning. The way sunlight fell across my kitchen floor. The comfort of sitting still without waiting for someone to arrive. Loneliness changes when you stop fighting it. It becomes a soft companion instead of a sharp pain. Weeks passed. Then months. He sent messages sometimes. Short ones. How are you? Hope you're well. I replied kindly. Always kindly. But I did not chase conversation anymore. I did not ask questions that would not be answered fully. I learned the shape of our new relationship. Smaller. Quieter. Careful. One evening, I found an old box while cleaning. Photographs. School papers. Drawings with crooked letters. Mom is the best, written in a child's hand. I sat on the floor and held those memories gently. Not with bitterness. With gratitude. I had been loved once. Fully and loudly. And that mattered. I started doing things for myself. Small things. I joined a morning walking group. I learned to cook new recipes just for me. I planted flowers that needed patience, not rushing. Healing does not arrive all at once. It comes in ordinary moments. Then, one afternoon, my phone rang. It was him. I let it ring once before answering. Mom, he said. Quietly. I could hear something different in his voice. Not confidence. Not distance. Something like hesitation. I've been thinking, he said. I haven't been a very good son. I did not interrupt. I didn't realize how much I pushed you away, he continued. I thought choosing my wife meant losing you. I closed my eyes. I never wanted you to choose, I said softly. I just wanted you to remember. There was a long pause. I'm sorry, he said. Not perfectly. Not completely. But honestly. We met a week later. Just the two of us. A small cafe. Neutral ground. He looked older to me. Marriage does that. Life does that. I didn't know how to balance everything, he admitted. I took the easy way. Silence. I nodded. Silence is easy for the one who leaves, I said gently. It is heavy for the one who stays. He looked down. I know, he whispered. I did not ask him to change everything. I did not ask for time or promises. I asked for respect. For honesty. For space in his life that did not feel borrowed. He agreed. Slowly. Carefully. Our relationship did not return to what it was. But it became something real again. Something honest.
No pretending. No forcing.
Just two adults learning each other again.
I still see them sometimes.
I still feel the distance. But it no longer defines me. I am not forgotten. I am simply no longer centered in his world. And that is okay. Because I learned something important. Being a mother does not mean disappearing. It means knowing when to step back without erasing yourself. Did I used to believe that being a good mother meant holding on. Holding on tighter when life pulled my child away. Holding on even when it hurt. Holding on until my hands were tired and my heart felt empty. But silence taught me something different. Sometimes love is not about holding on. Sometimes love is about knowing when to loosen your grip. I still wake up some mornings wishing things were different. I still remember. The sound of his childhood laughter. The way he used to run into my arms without thinking. Those memories do not disappear. They live quietly inside me now. Not as wounds. As proof. I no longer wait by the phone. If he calls, I answer with warmth. If he does not, I continue my day. I have learned that my life does not pause just because someone else is busy living theirs. This lesson came late, but it came gently. I forgive him, not because he was right, but because holding pain was costing me peace. Forgiveness did not change him overnight. It changed me. I also forgive myself for giving too much, for staying silent too long, for believing my worth depended on being needed. I am more than a mother waiting to be remembered. I am a woman with a full heart and a life that still matters. If you are listening to this and feeling unseen, if your child has chosen a path that no longer includes you the way it once did, please hear this. You are not forgotten. You are not replaced. You are not less important. You're simply standing at a new chapter. Love does not always look like closeness. Sometimes it looks like distance with dignity. Sometimes it looks like silence with strength. Sometimes it looks like letting go without bitterness. I still love my son. That will never change. But now I love myself too. And that love, that is what finally brought me peace.